Hi there. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Praying Medic. Here's today's message.
Now the show about faith, miracles, and the supernatural, Praying Medic Live. Our host is a paramedic and a former atheist who now sees miracles nearly every day, and he teaches others how to live a supernatural life. Here he is, Praying Medic.
Hi there. This is Praying Medic Live, and I am your host, Praying Medic. I'm here every Thursday night at 8 p.m. on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. My goal with this show is to teach average believers how to live a supernatural life. My guest tonight is my good friend, Jesse Birkey, who is joining us from his home somewhere near Bradenton, Florida. Jesse is a full-time firefighter paramedic, a blogger, a husband, a father, an author, and because he has so much free time on his hands, he's one of the cast members of a new TV show called Project Afterlife. Jesse, welcome to the show. How you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing good, Dave. Yeah, this is great, man. I love your theme music. I just kind of want to dance every time I.
That is some awesome dance music.
I'm dancing in my room right now to your theme music. It's pretty awesome.
I am dancing in my chair during the breaks when we're listening to the music.
How can you sit still? How can you just stay still?
You can't. Denise actually picked out that music, so she's got good taste.
Mad props. Let me tell you.
She's awesome. Hey, how are Kara and the kids doing?
Oh, they're doing really good. They're sleeping right now. They had to go to bed. It's late night radio here.
This is late night radio. You got a cup of coffee, bro?
Yeah. What's that?
You got a cup of coffee?
I did. I did get a cup of coffee.
Right
I'm
on.
all fired up. I'm all jazzed up. So.
All right.
I'm excited.
So Austin Messer, Alice Briggs, Jenny Wilcox, I know you guys are listening. Get your coffee because you're going to like this show. So, Jesse, I have been waiting for a long, long time to get you on the show. You and I vox each other almost every day, and it's awesome. I love what God's doing in your life, and I love the revelation He's given you, and I love the transformation He's done in your life over the last decade or so. Wanted to start off with a little bit of discussion about the big secret we were keeping all summer long about your TV show, Project Afterlife.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, man, it's been quite the interesting journey, and it all kind of just happened from the vision that Johnny Clark had for the documentary called Dead Raiser, and so that premiered in 2014, and 2013, and in the summer of 2014, a production company called Screaming Flea out of Seattle, they loved the documentary, they loved the people in it, they loved the story, they loved the vision. And so they wanted to turn it into a reality show. And I remember when that kind of came across, Karen and I just kind of looked at each other and said, "Oh, is this really something that we want to be a part of?" Because we were nervous and we didn't know what to expect and we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. But we just spent a lot of time just talking to the Lord and just spending a lot of time in prayer and just trying to discern the best way to move forward. And we just felt like God was saying, "Go ahead and walk through this door that's open." And so we said yes, and in March of 2015, March of this year, we began production for a new series called Project Afterlife. And the series is based on 3 criteria for people. They had to have been clinically dead, they had to have an other side experience, and they had to have somebody praying for them to come back to life. And so, man, it's been so exciting getting to uncover the details of these different cases, and I mean, some details have blown my mind, it's blown other people's minds, but it's just all so good, and I've just been loving every part of it. It's been a new discovery every time we go out. So.
Yeah, I love this show, too. I've been a big follower of near-death experiences and resurrection testimonies. On my blog, I've probably posted well over 30 or 35 resurrection testimonies over the years because I just find the stories so fascinating and so compelling. And, it does blow your mind because, you and I were talking earlier today. If you want to investigate the afterlife and afterlife experiences, honestly and objectively, you kind of have to put some of your preconceptions on hold because what you're going to find out is going to blow your preconceptions out of the water.
Yeah, it's happened to me. Going and talking to these people. I grew up in a traditional belief of what is supposed to happen when we die and we go to heaven and all that, and it's just, every single case that we're uncovering, the details they may be a little dark in the beginning, and then they change to, Jesus comes in and pours in His light, or they may just be nothing but joy in the beginning as we enter into the presence of Christ. But different details that we've uncovered have stretched my own understanding. And I don't know that I expected to be impacted or changed this much by being a part of this show. I mean, there's just things in there that have stretched my heart, stretched my faith, stretched my understanding, and that is really uncomfortable for people. And it's really uncomfortable for me, too. I mean, we have to wrestle with this stuff, and I've had to wrestle with some things that people have said they've experienced, and I've just kind of had to say, well, I'm not gonna pick and choose what parts of their experience I'm going to believe and then call them liars on the other part. I gotta take in the whole experience and wrestle with it and just take it to God and say, you know, what do you want me to learn through this, and what do you want to show me through this? It's just been really fascinating.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people find uncomfortable about talking about afterlife experiences is, like you said, we tend to have this neat, tidy theology and eschatology and all of our little ducks in a row, and we think we understand how it all works. And, you know, if you're a believer and you die, you go right to heaven and nothing in between. But the problem is, I mean, I've interviewed well over, you know, probably 75, maybe 100 people over the years in the ambulance in my job who have had cardiac arrest and have had afterlife experiences. And the stories that I hear, I'm just like, wow, that is crazy. The things that people experience and see and do and the places they go. And, you know, the interesting thing is a lot of people do not go right to heaven immediately when they die. In fact, of the first 6 stories you guys did, 4 of them were not believers.
Right.
And so, you know, they didn't go right to heaven immediately. They had some other stuff going on. One of the interesting things I find a lot is when people go into cardiac arrest, they either remain in the room relatively, you know, for about a minute or two, and then they start kind of wandering around the earth plane. They start going to different places, visiting people and going to hospitals, and they just start kind of wandering around. And sometimes they go down into the underworld. Sometimes they go into heaven after a little while. But it's really, to me, it's really fascinating how...
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
We had 2 cases in particular. In the second episode, we had Rick Madison, who had his out-of-body experience, and he started walking through the hospital, and he ended up in the chapel and saw his mother praying, and then he, like you were talking about people coming out of their bodies and walking around, he experienced that. And then we had Arthur Veal in the third episode, went to what we can only assume is Sheol at this point.
Right.
And so, I mean, you have these different experiences, and we're just, like I said, we're left to wrestle with some of that and just to try to wrap our minds around it, you know?
Yeah, I liked the first episode and the third episode, but the second episode really hooked me. Denise was crying throughout the entire show, most of it. And I know part of the reason why she was crying was she was really envisioning what would happen to me if I ever went into cardiac arrest and I died. Would she have the faith to pray to bring me back from death? And she was wrestling with a lot of these issues, and we talked about it afterwards. It really impacted her in a big way. It is on Destination America. If you look on your cable channel guide, it'll you can find out what channel it's on in your area. Your show airs Sunday nights at 9?
Sunday nights at 9 Central.
10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central.
Correct.
8 Mountain, 7 Pacific.
And then they redo it in Pacific at 10, I believe.
And if you cannot find it on your local cable channel, you can download the episodes on iTunes, on Google, and on Amazon.
Correct.
Right on. Cool. That's good information. Hey, Jesse, we're going to go take a break. Be back in a few minutes. If you've just tuned in, I'm Praying Medic. This is Praying Medic Live. When we come back, Jesse is going to tell us about his newest book. You're listening to Praying Medic Live on Independent Talk 1100 KFNX. Welcome back to Praying Medic Live. I'm your host, Praying Medic, and we are live with my friend Jesse Birkey. If you just joined us, we're talking about his new TV show, Project Afterlife, a show that investigates people who have been raised from the dead. Now, Jesse, you've also written several books, and you have a new one coming out in a couple of days. Can you tell us a bit about your next book?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the first 2 books I wrote were nonfiction. So we published Marriage What's the Point in 2010. Life Resurrected came in 2012, and that actually has a handful of resurrection testimonies in it that I had the chance to see and play a role in. And then I was spending some time with the Lord one morning, and I was just kind of sitting in my chair, just like, hey, God, what's going on? And he just began to download into my heart and just began to explain to me that the problem for the vast majority of people regarding a relationship with him and just inner healing and freedom isn't our ability to love him. You know, I feel like he was saying that he believes that we love him as much as we can. It's not like we're saying, God, we love you, and he's saying, no, you're a liar. The issue is in our ability to truly believe that he loves us back. The ability for us to rest in his love and to truly see ourselves the way that he sees us. And so I just kind of let that simmer for a while. It seemed like it was so much of a bigger thing than a blog post or something like that. And I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to write another nonfiction book? And he said, no. I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to tell that through a story. And I said, God, I don't know how to write fiction. And he said, that's okay. We'll walk through it, and I'll teach you how. So 3 years later, very long. I mean, the journey to writing this book has been really eye-opening, and it's been really amazing. And I've had a great time doing it. I've found that I love telling stories, which is something I wasn't sure if I could do or not. And learning all the technical skill of writing it, but it's called Finding Home. And in it, we have John, who is really kind of a pillar in his town and experiences just a horrific tragedy in his life. And the circumstances of that just make him turn all of the blame onto God. And so he walks away, he moves out of town, you know, leaves everything behind that he could be recognized by, and sets up a life that is really just in booze and women and gambling and just a real dark time in his life. And so he wants to stay that way, and he's staying that way until he meets a mystical stranger who begins to challenge him on that. And he finds he can't really stay in that state anymore because of the challenge that's being provided for him. And then on the other side, we have a young woman named Alice. And she has just come off of the streets of a life of prostitution and the sex trade, and she has found a home, so to speak, in Redwood, New York. And so she found a family there, and so her journey is discovering even more of who she is in the Lord and coming free from a life that entangled her and the bondage that entangled her. And it's just beautiful how then these two stories are just weaved together, and just the redemption of God and the restoration of God. And I just had an awesome time writing it, and I think it's pretty powerful in the story and just the way that God moves in it. And so I'm really excited for it. I'm happy about it. So.
Well, you learned a lot about the writing process in doing this book. I mean, I was privy to the kind of the inside of it because you and I use the same editor. And so Lydia was talking to me about what's going on with you, and she's editing your book while she's editing one of my books, and we're talking, and you and I are voxing each other and stuff. And you were generous enough to let me have a beta copy of the book. So I read it before it published. And I'll tell you, you said it perfectly. The way that these two lives are played out and the way that God redeems their past and gives them a fresh perspective on life and him and his love and who they are, it's just really powerful. I just love that book. There's so many places where I was just weeping and crying. And then 1 minute, I'm crying, and 2 pages later, I'm laughing my butt off. It's just a really good story. I mean, you are a really good writer, and for your first fiction book, I think you did a really awesome job. And I hope the listeners get a chance to check it out. So that's going to be launching September 1st. Correct.
Yes. And you are laughing every time at how often I use the word shrug, right? What did I use like 150 times in that book?
Let's see, the eyebrows scrunching, the shoulders shrugging. Well, and the thing is, like I said, you learned a lot in the process of writing this book. And, we all learn in the process of writing. You learn how to become a better writer and how to convey things. And, we had some discussions that were so good. You had me cracking up with those discussions. It was awesome. It's funny, too, because I had I'm going to be writing some fiction books as well. But I'm going to write an ebook, and I have to get this thing off my plate because about 4 months ago, the Lord gave me this dream. He gave me an entire story in a dream, and I could read the text of the dream. or the text of the story. It was something like about a 5,000-word essay. It was just a story about the goodness of God. And it was the craziest dream because the Lord was just telling me this story, and I could read all the words. And when I woke up, I was like, how do I remember like a 5,000-word story? Which was just a spiritual image that I saw. It was crazy.
Wow.
I don't actually remember the entire story, but I remember the concepts of the story. So I think what the Lord was telling me is he wants me to write a story that displays the goodness of God. And so that's an ebook that I'll probably be coming up with here in the next few months, along with all the other book projects I have going on.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on that.
Well, Finding Home is coming out September 1st. You're already thinking about writing a series to go with this book.
Yeah, I actually, towards the end, I rearranged the ending so that it could leave it open to another book in the series.
I noticed. That was very sneaky of you. At the suggestion of a mutual friend.
That's right, yeah. I've actually got 2 more planned. So it's the Lost and Found series, and there's going to be 3. It's going to be a trilogy.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to reading all of those books. I'm sure you're going to have some more really cool stuff for readers. So where can people find Finding Home when it comes out in a couple of days?
Yeah, so right now we're still in the process of taking pre-orders. We will do that until September 1st, and that's going to be done at jessebirkey.com. There's a little products button at the top, and you can click that, and Finding Home will be there. And then on September 1st, it's going to be available on Amazon, Smashwords, pretty much anywhere that you could purchase a book, it'll be available there.
Paperback and Kindle?
Paperback and Kindle, yes.
Okay. And ebooks on iBook and Nook and Kobo will have it too?
Correct, yeah, all platforms. Mm-hmm.
Right on. So that's September 1st.
Yeah.
Anything going on Facebook-wise, any special events on Facebook or any social media surrounding the launch?
But I don't have any kind of premiere parties or anything going on around that time. Just relying on some help and getting the word out, and people who believe in the story and people who believe in the concept, and just helping me spread the word that way.
Right on.
So, yeah, that's pretty much what I have planned.
You're going to have to give me an excerpt from that book that I can post on my blog.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do need to give you that.
Yeah, so I'll be posting an excerpt probably after the book goes live and people can purchase it.
Very cool.
So pick out a good chunk of the story. Well, maybe the one down by the lake where Alice is there and on the sidewalk and stuff.
I remember you saying something about Nita. Yeah, that scene.
Yeah, or whatever, Yeah. Now, you were talking about your other book, and we only have a couple minutes left in this segment, so this will segue into the second one. But your book, Life Resurrected, really kind of blew me away because I was reading that book, and I get in the first chapter, and there are 4 people who get raised from the dead in the first chapter. And I'm like, what in the world is this crazy guy doing? So, man, I was like, when I started reading that book, I was like, okay, this is cool. We got to talk some more about this. So when we come back from the break, I want to talk to you a little bit about Life Resurrected.
Okay.
I'd like to see if I can get you to share some testimonies. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Praying Medic Live, and I am your host, Praying Medic, with my friend Jesse Birkey. If you just joined us, Jesse and I are talking about some of the books that he's written. Jesse, you've seen a few people brought back from death, like most paramedics. I know I've seen a few of them myself. But you've seen people raised from the dead without the use of electricity or drugs.
Yes. Just
by the power of prayer. So, and you've told some of these stories in your book, Life Resurrected. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to pray over a dead body and watch it come back to life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll share with the first testimony that kind of really kickstarted Life Resurrected. I wasn't looking for opportunities to pray for the dead to be raised. That was just about the furthest thing from my grid that I could have possibly imagined.
And that's the crazy thing, too, because you were just hanging out, and all of a sudden God starts speaking to you.
Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, I'll tell you what I did do was I said yes to the Lord, and without even really understanding what I was saying yes to. So
you didn't take any classes in how to raise the dead?
Nope, not a one. I was lying in bed at the fire station one night. This was at the end of 2008. And all of a sudden, it had been a really impactful year for me. There were a lot of things that the Lord did in my heart during 2008, and it had brought me to a place to where I could actually hear Him speak to me. And so I was lying there in my bed. It was probably about 11 o'clock at night, and the emergency tones went off, signaling we had a call. And it came in as just an ill person, and so me and my partner, climbed into the ambulance and took off. And before that, when I was lying in the bed, I heard the Lord say, I want you to start taking me with you on your emergency calls. And I was just laying there, and I said, well, that's a novel idea. So why didn't I think of that before? It's been, 8 years I've been doing this, and I haven't done that yet.
Hey, God, you stay here at the fire station. I'm going to go on a call. I'll be right back.
It sounds ridiculous, but, that's pretty much what I had said for 8 years in doing this job. And so to consciously be aware of Him coming with me was a complete, total shift in my perspective. And so on the way to the call, I began to pray for the person. And I said, okay, Lord, we're going to do this. This is a good one. Just a sick person, maybe a tummy ache. We'll take care of this. And so, Lord, I just pray for this person I'm about to meet, and I just ask you to heal them and just to speak to their heart. And then dispatch came back over the radio and said, hey, it's now a cardiac arrest. And
Woo!
I said, this isn't what I signed up for. This is not what I signed up for.
In the deep end.
Yeah, right in there. Yep. And so we're walking up to the door of the residence, and I'm saying, God, this is too big. I can't do this, Lord. And He said, you know what? I just want you to continue to pray. Just trust in what I can do, and just continue to pray.
Now, you're hearing God. You're hearing the voice of God through, thought impressions in your mind.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it as an external
the audible voice. No.
Right. I'm hearing it as a quiet voice in my heart and my mind. Yeah.
Right.
And so we walked back there to the back room, and I said, Lord, this is too much. And He said, just continue to pray, see what I can do. We found this gentleman lying there. His back was on the floor. His feet were up. He was cold and pale, and I reached down to feel a carotid pulse in his neck, and there was no pulse there. He was not breathing. And I'm telling my partner, I said, go ahead and get the monitor set up. It was just the two of us because we had help on the way, but there was nobody there to help us out at all at that point. And so I said, Lord, it's over. He's dead. This is it. And God said, no, just continue to pray and see what I can do. I said, well, what in the world do I have to lose at this point? So I said, I just bind the spirit of death, and I command life to come back into this man. And at that point, my partner had just finished putting the monitor on, switched it on, and I saw a perfect heartbeat come across that monitor. And I reached down again to his neck, and there was a pulse there.
So,
and I looked.
So you had not started an IV.
Not started an IV.
Were you guys even doing CPR at this point?
No CPR. No CPR had been performed.
No resuscitation really at all.
Nothing at all. It all happened very quickly. Nothing at all. Just my little quiet mumbled prayers. All right.
Quiet mumbled prayers. My favorite kind when you're in the middle of a code.
Yeah. My faith inspired move mountain little quiet mousy prayer. Yes.
Right. And so 1 minute the guy's dead, and the next minute he's alive.
Next minute he's alive. I reach down to feel a pulse. I'm looking at my partner. He's like, I've got a pulse. He's like, what? You have a pulse? No, you don't. Yes, I do have a pulse. And then the guy starts breathing on his own. And then he starts moaning. And I'm just sitting there telling my partner, don't touch him. Don't mess this up.
I raised somebody from the dead, and you're not going to kill him.
Yeah. Don't do anything. And so the guy who had been dead, he starts to try to sit up, and what happened? No, sir, lay down on the floor there. It's going to be okay, I guess. Now it is maybe. And he starts telling me that he doesn't need to go to the hospital. And I said, oh no, you're going to the hospital. You were just dead, and so we're going to take you to the hospital.
But he was mostly dead.
Yeah, he was mostly dead. Yeah, just mostly dead. Yeah. So by the time we got him to the hospital, all his vital signs were normal, and I'm left there to consider what in the world just happened to me. That wasn't. I wasn't supposed to go out and pray for somebody who was dead to come back to life and then see that happen.
No, dude, because I've been praying for people in my ambulance for, I don't know, since 2008, 2009. And I have not yet seen anyone come back from death other than, defibrillation and drugs and the usual resuscitation stuff. I haven't seen anybody come back from death with just prayer. I've seen tons and tons of people, frozen shoulders, neck pain, migraines, everything else. But you get thrown in the deep end, and boom, you have to raise somebody from the dead like immediately, which is just crazy to me.
It's one thing to read the Bible stories and say, oh yeah, we believe that Jesus can raise the dead. He did it in the Bible with Lazarus and other examples throughout the biblical narrative. It's a whole another thing to be in that situation and to even be in a position to pray for somebody who is dead, and then to see them come back to life. It's just kind of total mind blow. Yeah. And so, I was about to leave the hospital after that call. I didn't really know what to do. I was just kind of in a little daze.
Bewilderment.
Like, did I really just see? Yeah, I was completely bewildered.
So not long after that, you end up, there's a woman who's been drowned in a pool, and her husband takes her out of the pool, and she was under the water for unknown length of time?
Yeah. And it was shortly after that. So we run on
a couple
of
weeks, I think, something.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. It wasn't even in our first due area, so we had an extended en route time, arrival time. And so we get there, she's out of the pool, and there's no pulse, and we hook the monitor up, and there's just flat line across the monitor. And so we're doing our protocol stuff, and so I'm praying again. So, well, it worked the other time, so let's just do this again. Let's pull another one out of the pocket here. And so, all right, Lord, we're going to do this. So I pray for life to come back. I pray against the spirit of death and command it to leave. And we get a pulse back. A pulse comes back on this woman who is submerged for an unknown length of time. Could have been an hour or so. And yeah, it was just completely amazing. And so I started to see that there were, and I started that whole year. I saw, I believe, 9 like that. And
wait a minute. Wait a minute. 9 people who were pulseless who came back?
Yeah, and they were all in asystole, which is not even shockable.
Right, exactly. Asystole is pretty much, your friend is all dead. He's not mostly dead. He's all dead.
That's right. That's confirmation of death. Asystole is confirmation of death.
Right. Wow, that just blows me away.
Yeah, it was just nuts. And then the Lord began to just move in different ways. I remember one morning where I was coming to work, and I said, Lord, I was feeling a little bit insecure, in my ability to pray for people to be healed of different things. We had just had somebody come into our small group meeting the night before and talk about healing. And I said, Lord, I'm feeling a little insecure, and I want to pray for somebody today, but can you make sure that the person that I get to pray for is already a believer? It's like, that'll make it a little bit easier because we can connect on that, whatever. And so we respond to this report of an injured person, and we walk through the door. There's this middle-aged woman there hopping around on one foot, and I look down at her toe, and her toe is severely angulated. And it's broken. It is twisted. It is nasty looking. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I was dancing around, to worship, praise and worship music this morning, and I kicked the door jamb, and I'm pretty sure I hurt my toe really bad. I said, oh, you were dancing around to praise and worship music, huh? She's like, yeah. I said, well, Lord, thank you, Lord. And so we got back into the rescue, and I just started talking to her and just, formed this rapport, and she told me how she's just a new believer, and she's full of passion, full of the Spirit of God, and so excited to have somebody there that would pray for her. So, I just laid my hands on that toe, prayed for it, didn't see any immediate response, but got to check back about an hour later at the hospital. The toe was fine. No fracture, no nothing.
Love that.
She was being discharged.
That's awesome. What's really interesting, Jesse, is you and I do a lot of the same things. We're both praying for people on the job. I read a lot of your stories on your website, and it seems to me like God uses you more in the prophetic, more so than he does in healing, because you seem to be always writing stories where God is giving you like encouraging words for people. And for me, it's a lot of, oh, wow, that you got back pain. Hey, let's get that healed.
Yeah, the prophetic is really where, I grew up. The first gift that I asked to receive was the gift of the prophetic. I just felt something stir in response to that. And so it's kind of where my comfort zone is. And to be able to pray for somebody to be healed or raised from the dead is more of a step outside of my comfort zone as far as the spiritual gifts go. Those are things like the prophetic comes to me the easiest. But praying for somebody to be healed or praying for somebody to be raised from the dead is something that takes more of an effort for me to do. Does that make sense at all? I mean, it's just not the...
That is so interesting, too, because, we all have our different comfort zone. I mean, if you are, a believer and you understand the gifts of the Spirit, I think everybody has a particular gift that they feel really comfortable with. Like for me, it's healing. God has spoken to me more about healing and has demonstrated healing through me more than anything else. For me, prophecy is a stretch. I don't very often give people prophetic words. I would get people asking me on social media, hey, can you give me a word? And I'm like, you probably got the wrong guy. You want to go talk to Jesse or somebody else.
You're super.
But I have just tons of faith for healing.
Yes.
I will just go after anything that has to do with healing. And I mean, I will give prophetic words, and I've given people some messages from God. But it is interesting in that everybody seems to have a little different comfort zone with regard to spiritual gifts.
Yeah, it just seems like when the Lord leads me in front of somebody, he reveals their heart. I get to catch a glimpse of their heart, and maybe not even the heart that they are wearing on the outside, but what's deeper on the inside. There was a gentleman that we transported. We ended up putting him out in triage, and he was suffering from a few debilitating illnesses. And just the heaviness that I saw on his shoulders, just that the Lord allowed me to see on his shoulders, as was pushing him down. It was almost as if it was even impossible for him to sit up straight. And so I just waited till my partner had left and was putting the stretcher back together, and the triage nurse had gone on to do her thing. And I just sat next to him, and I just asked him if it would be okay if I prayed for him. And he just looked at me with hope, and he said, yes, absolutely. And I just asked the Holy Spirit to begin to speak to me, and I saw these banners come across his forehead. And on each one of the banners they were written things like worthless and unlovable and failure, and all of these different horrible accusations that had been brought against him his entire life, the things that the enemy had written on the tablets of his heart that had become his identity. And the Lord just showed me, he said, I want you to remove all of those negative banners that have been spoken over his life, and I want you to put new ones on there. And so I prayed that out. I prayed that vision out. I said, you know what? This is what I see of you. It's like a veil that's covering your face, and there's like banners across your forehead. And I just want to rip those off right now. I'm ripping off the title of unlovable. I'm ripping off the title of insignificant and not valuable and not loved and unaccepted and rejected and abandoned. I'm ripping all of those things off. And in the name of Jesus, I just redefine you as loved and accepted and chosen and claimed and set apart, sanctified and pure. All these things that just came to me, to my heart in that moment. And his countenance began to lift up. And it's, like he'd never heard those things before about him. And that the hope that was actually for him, that somebody could be saying those things to him someday, was reaching out and grasping onto those words. And he was being drawn into the embrace of the loving arms of Jesus in that moment. And I mean, you could see it in his eyes, and he just began to weep, right there in the wheelchair that he was sitting on. And I don't get to, and we don't get to follow up on people like this very often, but I know that God touched him, and a lot of times ministry for me looks like that. And I love talking about love. I love being able to speak love and life into the hearts of people, and just so that they can get a glimpse, a touch from God in times that they need it the most. And me and you, Praying Medic, we see people on their worst days, and we have such an opportunity to speak life into people and to pray for the sick to be healed and to speak the words that Jesus has for them, seeing them spiritually resurrected, if not physically resurrected, to the life that Jesus has for them. And so it's just been incredible. Yeah,
and I agree. I mean, amen to everything. I love the power of prophecy. I've delivered some prophetic words to some, career alcoholics who I did get to follow up with, and they were completely transformed and changed and gave up alcohol altogether.
Amen.
As a result of, them giving them a prophetic word. Prophecy is really powerful, much more powerful than people really understand. So I am so blessed to read your blog posts about how you're doing that, because I just know you're changing so many people's lives. Now, I have a question for you. Hypothetical question. You have a magic wand that can magically erase any teaching about God What is the one teaching about God that you would get rid of?
That everything is His will that happens on the earth. Man, that came quick. You know?
That was fast.
Yeah, that was really fast. Yeah.
So God is in control?
The one thing I would get rid of is that God is in ultimate control of everything that happens on the earth, because that means that He's then responsible for the evil, terrible, disgusting things that happen. And so that's the one I would remove.
I would not disagree with you. I think I have seen more people's faith shipwrecked and more people's lives ruined simply by the belief that God is ultimately in control of everything and that everything that happens is His will, because then you've got this messed up life and screwed up friends and messed up family, and it's all God's fault because He wants it to be this way. And you could just rack your brain all day long trying to figure out, why would He want it this way?
Yeah, and Jesus came to, I believe that Jesus came to undo that image of God. Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. Some of the biggest ones were the lies related to who God is, who the Father is. And Jesus came to fully reveal the Father. He fully revealed the Father on the cross. God would rather die than kill. God would rather heal than cause any disease or anything like that. God is not the author of pain. He's love, and it's love that's the answer for that pain. And so I would, no question, I would get rid of that one.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that question. Because, I agree with you totally. If God is in control, man does not have free will. We're puppets on a string.
Right.
And we're just doing whatever He forces us to do. And, the theology, the teaching that God is ultimately in control of everything really is much more dangerous than people realize, I think. Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think that a lot of conversations that I have with people who don't believe in the Christian God, so to speak, don't believe it because they don't want to believe in a God that is as terrible as they think He is. Yeah, if you tell atheists about the God you actually believe in, who is not in control, who is not a bloodthirsty, ruthless murderer, who is not if you actually sit down with an atheist and explain the God of love and compassion and mercy and healing, they'll look at you and go, yes, that God I believe in, but not the other one that those other guys are talking about. Yeah, and I would say I don't blame you. I wouldn't want much to do with a God who kills babies and wipes out countries with tidal waves and all this other negative stuff either. I want the God that Jesus revealed. I want the God that Jesus reflected. The one who comes and heals our infirmities, the one who comes and lets us lean against Him as we walk, the one who comes and lifts us up when we can't take another step. I want the one who takes our burdens. I want that God, because that's the God I believe is there that encounters us and gets off the throne and comes down and embraces His kids. That's what I want, and I'm convinced that if everyone really knew who He was, there would be no one that would run from Him. Everybody would be running to Him, because we're all built to find that. We're all built to find the love that our hearts need, and He's where it's at. So many just don't know that, though. Yeah, that is true. Hey, Jesse, that is going to be a wrap on the show. Real quick, Project Afterlife is on Destination America on cable. Yep. And you can download it on Amazon, Google, and iTunes? Yes. People can find your books on your website, jessebirkey.com? Yes, that's correct. On Amazon, iBook, all the usual book outlets? Yes, that's correct. You're on Twitter and Facebook. Any other social media places we should tell people about? I don't think so. Twitter and Facebook, that's pretty much my platforms there. Okay, well, I'm Praying Medic, and on behalf of Jesse, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I'd also like to thank Braden for his assistance on the board. If you want to check out my website, where I have a lot of free articles and videos, you can find that at prayingmedic.com. You can also check out my books on amazon.com, including my newest book, American Sniper, Lessons in Spiritual Warfare. Thanks for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed today's message. You might consider sharing it with your friends. You can do that through the links provided below the video, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel.